Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how so many people seem to have the view now that the Western civilization is pretty much over. The globalists are really just taking it out back and finishing it off, giving it the final sort of slap around and giving it the metaphorical knifing in the, or maybe not metaphorical, the knifing in the back and so on. And that it's just gone so far that it's unrecoverable. Now, I don't. Things are not good now. Let's be realistic here. Things are not good. The globalists seem to be in the ascendant everywhere. But is it over? Is it finished? And well, until the final nails in the coffin, it isn't. Western civilization has had a habit of reinventing and resurrecting itself a number of times now. When it seemed all was lost, somehow it finds a way back. So we shouldn't assume that it is all over, and I don't believe it is. What we're witnessing now is an elite that is forcing their view of how the world should be onto the majority, and they're bypassing democracy, they're bypassing due legal process, they're bypassing the rule of law, and they're bypassing all natural organic forces. They're forcing an unnatural situation on us all, where there's no sort of market forces or organic forces at play, or almost none. And so this artifice that they're forcing upon us can't last that long, as we noticed in the Soviet Union. They even when all the people knew was communism, they still didn't want it in the end. And the amount degree of control and oppression, the secret police, the informants, the control of the media, all the things that the communists put in place to maintain power ended up being the cause of their downfall in the end. And if you read George Orwell's, or even look at the movies, 1984, when they're torturing Winston Smith and demanding that he say, 4 is actually 5, and so on, which is in itself a form of humiliation and crushing of the spirit. And even then, he said, in the end, the people will beat you, and they will tear you to pieces. And I think this is probably where it's going to go, if not tomorrow, but certainly over the longer term. The unnatural nature of what the globalists are doing will, in the end, be their downfall. But let's suppose that we have across the Western world some politicians that are not owned by the globalists, that manage to achieve some sort of prominence, and maybe even form government. Then what do we need to do to bring the world back from the brink of the madness that the globalists are forcing on us? There's not too many things that really we need to do. It's not that hard, in my view. I may see it as being a bit simpler than it really is, but how do we solve the problem of the universities and all the activism there? Because it's a hothouse of activism. Well, for a start, we can show that only bright kids go to university, and the soft, silly bullshit courses that have been developed just for low IQ kids to do, the ones like gender studies, peace studies, African American studies, all that stuff goes. It's all going, and along with it, all the activist professors and academics and flunkies and hangers on. The fees for studying at university need to be brought back in line with incomes and the general cost of living, so they at least would fall by half, if not more. So all that money that's being used to have black lesbian diversity officers and all this sort of thing, all that would go, and all those people would go. So effectively, you clean out the whole university sector, and it would go back to not that they can't protest and be activists about things. Of course they can. It's a university, but all views are welcome. Views that are for transgender bathrooms, and views that are equally vehement against transgender bathrooms, and that's how it should be. So that's what we could solve the university problem really with some pieces of legislation, and there'd be a lot of students getting out of university because there'd be no bullshit easy courses for them to do. And these are kids who don't have an IQ 90, for goodness sakes. They shouldn't be at university. And of course, all the useless low IQ academics and so on that go with. So they go. The other thing is the NGOs that are very active, stirring up all sorts of things, organising activism, getting kids on the street to run wave placards around, printing the placards for them, and all that sort of thing. Well, all these NGOs act as charities, and they don't have to pay any tax. And when people donate to them, they get a tax deduction for the donation in many countries, at least. So that tax exempt status should be gone immediately, and that would shut down most of the NGOs, or make it so expensive for them to do business that it kind of wouldn't really be worth it. Add to that some fines and so on if they engage in anti-American activism, and are being funded directly to do that, rather than just some grassroots thing. If they're receiving external funding, then I think that should be shut down as well, and that would pretty much shut down their activism. Certainly their political anti-white, anti-Western activism, and their extra legal activities, which should of course also be shut down. The other thing is activism in say the legal profession and things like that. That unless a judicial officer is completely impartial, they shouldn't have that position. Activist lawyers and so on also. Now, if they want to do all their work for free and they're activists, okay, that's fine. But if they expect a salary to be paid by the taxpayer, then you can't favour one group of taxpayers over another. And so we hate all white people because the cost, white people are paying their wages, in effect. They're the only net contributors to the tax base. So these sorts of things. The other thing, of course, too, is the party machines, the political party machines. They're owned by the globalists, and we really need to review donations to political parties and how that's managed and conducted and facilitated in terms of creating, again, anti-American activity or anti-Western activity. Now, there's a lot of also institutions, ranging from museums to libraries to so on. Again, activism has no place. If you're being paid by the government, by the taxpayers' money, white taxpayers, then you cannot be also an activist. You want to do activism on your own time, fine, go ahead and do it. You're a free citizen in a free country, or should be. But then these activists are gone. So once you start taking away all these activists, then suddenly you don't have things like the gay lesbian story reading to 3-year-olds and the like. There are other things to all the propaganda that's being produced, the anti-white, anti-straight white male, anti-Western propaganda. These people are all getting, again, tax breaks and all sorts of incentives and funding paid by white taxpayers to hate on white people. That could stop. Again, legislation could stop that. Critical race theory in high schools, legislation could stop it. Unless a majority of voting parents vote for critical race theory, then it shouldn't be in schools at all. You can't have some small elite school board, funded by George Soros, spreading all this hate and propaganda. It's just not on. So really, there's not that many things need to be done to reverse the globalization project. A free media, of course, is utterly essential going forward. And similarly, freedom of speech on social media. You can't have these two-bit punk goons deciding what is misinformation, what isn't. They allow, Black Lives Matter, critical race theory propaganda, and say, well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's true and accurate. But if you complain about it or dispute it or anything like that, then suddenly you're guilty of misinformation, which is absurd, of course, utterly absurd. So these sort of things. And again, there's not that much to do. When I say not that much, there's plenty of hard work. I shouldn't understate it, but it's possible. It's possible to reverse it. we've got to get politicians that are not owned by the globalists, and we've got to put them in office. Maybe it's you, maybe it's me, maybe it's some other guy, but we particularly need to do that, and it's probably going to mean creating new political parties and finding new candidates to stand for office. But it's I think it's not easy, but it's doable. But once we can get that sort of political party or office holder in place, then the amount of things that need to be done can be done and can reverse most, if not all, of the globalist project. You've been with Tastis today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.